My brothers, my sisters, it is your man, the Duke, host of the Duke Loves Rasslin podcast. And I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go to www.strictlyfortheculture.ca. Strictly for the Culture is one of the hottest brands in sports and entertainment today. Come on, you've seen the t-shirts, you've seen the hoodies on folks like Rodney Mack, the Reverend Ron Hunt, Jeremy Prophet, MLW World Champion Alex Kane, Mr. PWI 500 Jay Bougie, even your man the Duke, and a lot of other podcasters and influencers. So I'll say it once again, www.strictlyfortheculture.ca. Do it for the love, do it for the respect, do it for the honor, but most of all, do it strictly for the culture. Brothers and sisters, on this edition of the Duke Loves Rasslin podcast, we are going to be joined by Lockjaw, Danny Cruz. He's a former military veteran who is also a pro wrestler and promoter. Danny's going to open up about his incredible life, including some traumas he's experienced. And for that reason, I am going to give this trauma alert here. Danny will be talking about everything from domestic violence to being a survivor of sexual assault. So please bear that in mind as you listen. But I do feel that this can help save lives. And it's for that reason we have Danny on the show this week. So without further ado, let's get on with the show.
Locked in.
Look at what we have here, folks.
To the only show that matters.
The cream of the crop.
Duke Loves Rasslin.
And there is no one that does it better than
your host.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
The Duke.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hey, this is Danny Cruz, aka the Puerto Rican Pitbull, Lockjaw, and you're listening to Duke Loves Rasslin.
Brothers and sisters, we have an interesting situation here. Our guest is someone that, first of all, is one of the coolest guys I've ever interacted with from wrestling. Just a really cool person. But we recorded about a week ago and had a great conversation. But unfortunately, the audio was kind of spotty. So still trying to figure out what we're going to do with that. So stay tuned. We'll have an update for that in the not too distant future. But ironically, after we recorded, we had a great conversation, and I realized there's a lot of great information that our guests can share that, hopefully can save some lives. I mean, that's how serious and how deep it is. So this is going to go down a very serious path, folks. I want to put that out there. So that's a trigger warning. But, we will end on a very positive note nonetheless. So without further ado, I guess welcome back to Duke Loves Rasslin. Danny,
oh, yeah.
What's going on there, Danny?
Another day, man. Just want to thank you again for having me.
Hey, no problem, man. I mean, it's interesting because you're a guy that's been in the wrestling industry. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been over 10 years now, right?
Yeah, a little over 10 years. This year will actually make 11.
Great. Congratulations on that. So you've wrestled, you promote, as my Jamaican family would say, you're the head cook and bottle washer, right? You do it all, right?
Oh, yeah. I do a lot more than people would expect. But yes.
You look like a wrestler too. That's one of the things that is really interesting. I mean, you got the bald head, the tattoos, you got great size on you. You look like somebody who is a wrestler or some kind of MMA fighter, something along those lines. You ever heard that before?
I've heard that many times. What's interesting is that I've always been a big kid, but obviously as you get older, like I am now, I've gotten a little bigger. But while I was in my military days, I didn't have the daddy gut, so to speak. But when I would walk down the street, people would see me and they see my facial expressions. And I had a couple back in Harlem one time I'm walking by and it was like, "You look like a boxer." I'm like, "Boxer?" They was like, "Yeah, man. Look at them hands." Like, and I would just laugh, like, "No, I'm not I wrestle, but I'm not a boxer."
You
So
missed
that
your
was
calling.
always, yeah. I mean, something within combat, I guess.
You missed your calling. See, you're doing this wrestling thing. You should have been a boxer.
Yeah.
You could have been Tyson Fury. Come on, man.
I mean, well, yeah. If ever, there was ever a time, I always thought about it, but then I'm like, I like my teeth,
Yes.
I like my teeth.
You want to keep your head as concussion free as possible, and not to say,
Exactly.
it happens in wrestling too, but in boxing you're guaranteed, right?
You're right, because the goal is to knock somebody out, and
Exactly.
so
it's true. It's true. So you're a military guy. What part of the military? And listen, I know that there may be things you can't say, so feel free to say I can't say that. It's okay. But what branch of military are you in?
Marines.
You're in the Marines,
Yeah.
and you served how many years?
5 years.
Okay, so what is that? One tour?
Just about. I mean, as far as contracts go, but in the 5 years, I've gone to Africa twice and Iraq. So I was in Senegal, Africa, which is northwest Africa, back in 2007. From September of 2008 to April of 2009, I was in Al Assad Air Base in Iraq. And back in 2010, I was in Mozambique, which is South Africa. So I got a lot of African in me.
Yeah, clearly. Man, I'm going to ask you a question that you probably have never been asked before. As crazy as it sounds, you're telling me about your military service, which in and of itself is pretty serious, but you got to eat. So
Right.
when you weren't eating MREs, how was the food overseas?
Well, when we went to Senegal, we had to be very careful, right? Because one of the situations was our commanders, they were basically saying, when we get over there, we can't do certain things with the locals. We can't eat what they're eating or how they're eating, because they would eat with their hands. And mind you, we went over there as a training operation. So we went there to train with their military, and just the dynamic, the language barrier, because over there they spoke French. So to try to understand them and train with them at the same time was already challenging. But as far as the food goes in Senegal, they had this rice, and a lot of their military, they would come, after training, they would have this big metal pan of this orangey red rice. So I didn't get a chance to eat from it, but some of the guys, they had a chance to eat from it. And they said it, has a nice kick to it. It's like a spice, a certain spice they had to it. And then when we got to the resort where we was basically where we had to wait for our plane, we spent, I think, a day or two at the hotel once all of our training was done. And they had like mousse. They had a lot of snacks. They had a lot of basically French food. And then obviously they knew that there was a lot of Americans coming, so they try to cater to the American crowd, knowing that they may not have the same cultural backgrounds. So they would just try to keep it something that we can all eat. The beer was definitely different. I can tell you that much. If anything stuck out to us, at least in Senegal, was the beer, because whatever it was that was in that beer, it had guys delusional. I mean, it was. I don't know what was in it, because at the time I'm still underage, so I couldn't drink. So I would watch the guys who were able to drink. And I don't know, they had a new form of bravery, and like they were superheroes. And I would just laugh, because whether it was a sergeant, whether it was the young private, or whatever, it was like, what the hell is in this beer? You know? But that experience was a very interesting experience because while in the midst of training, you had the language barrier, you had the different cultures when it came to the food and stuff, and then obviously you had the commanders, they're basically telling us like, look, I know you guys want to get involved with them and get to learn their culture and stuff, but to avoid any of us getting sick, we had to get the shots, we had to get the malaria pills, like it was these big blue horse pills that they would give us, and they would tell us, you can't drink any water from the local area, ice, anything. So when it came to the food, it was basically MREs for us just to keep us safe from getting sick.
So that's a buzzkill, man.
It was. Yes, it was.
So you weren't able to truly experience that aspect of the culture.
Right.
Which is unfortunate. So, but you were there for training. So you were actually training their military over there?
Yes. When we got there, it was desert training, so we get there. It's okay. I'm going to paint this picture for you. And I just want everybody who's listening to know that they make the joke about Marines eating crayons and us being jarheads, like basically all muscle and not enough brains. To some extent, there is truth to that, but not to me. However, now, Duke, I'm going to paint this picture for you. It's the middle of July in the U.S., right? So we know July is very hot. The logistics officers decided to go to the hottest place on the planet, because you figure Northwest Africa is not too far from the equator. And not only did we go to the hottest place in the world at the hottest time of the world, at the hottest time of the year, they had the logistics set up tents for us. Okay. When we get there, the tents are cold weather tents. I'm going to say it again. They were cold weather tents, which means the entire inside of that tent was insulated. So when we get off the plane and we get on this little bus, keep in mind, we are in full combat gear because we're in another country. We don't know what to expect. And we get to the staging area of where we were going to be located for the next few weeks. And that bus door opens, and it was like a microwave. And we looked at the temperature. I forgot who it was. I think it was one of our captains. He said, right now it's 140 degrees. 100, and I didn't know we were in that much heat until we saw one of the locals. He had on a black beanie and a black coat. And we're over here thinking, man, this guy's crazy. But we understood afterwards that we were in direct contact of the sun because it was so much more intense there. So we're in this 140 degree heat in July. So we get into these tents and it's like, okay, inside this tent has to at least be 160 and better. Now, if you're a big guy who has, little extra meat on his bones, you're having to now add on to your body heat from your own body. We had guys wake up in sweat prints. They would leave prints of their own sweat on the inside of these tents and the cots. And it was funny and it was crazy at the same time because it was like, who put these guys in charge of the logistics? They obviously didn't get the memo that July in New York is already 90 to 100 degrees. I don't know what they thought they were getting into going into Northwest Africa and expecting it to be anything cooler. As a matter of fact, the coldest that it got at night, I would say, is about 85 to 90 degrees. So you go from 140 degrees in the desert to 80 to 90 degrees at night. 80 to 90 degrees over there felt pretty chilly. It would have felt like a New York, Boston, 60, 70 degrees.
Wow.
So yeah. That's what we had to deal with.
That is absolutely crazy. Listen, no one could ever tell you anything about performing outdoors at wrestling events after that, huh?
No. Because when I hear people all the time, oh, it's hot. I'm like, you don't know what hot is.
Yeah. No idea.
You don't know, not even a little bit. And we would set up our guns, because what my job was, I was mortars, which is basically like a small arms artillery. So we basically did a lot of long distance firing. So we had to dig up the mortar pits to stage these weapons in place. And again, 140-degree heat. We're in full gear. And we had the little E-tool. For those who served in the military, you know what the E-tool is. It's this 6 to 9 inch shovel that we packed, and we would dig these big mortar pits with this little shovel. So it basically made double the work. And again, 140 degrees, red sand, dirt. We're drenched in sweat. And what's interesting was that there was a point in time where one of the military from there, the Senegalese army, they was like, it's hot. And we just looked at him like, dude, you live here. If they're saying they're hot and they live here, could you imagine what we feel? For 4 hours, we had to take a break from training, because from noon till about 4:30, we couldn't fire. We couldn't do any live fire training, because we didn't want to run the risk of melting the barrels. Because what tends to happen is with that type of heat, you melt the barrels. Now the gun not only jams, but the round that's still inside could explode, and the whole gun is destroyed at that point. So we got a 4-hour break, but after 140 degrees, it's still nothing. It's still hot.
Having to do literally a life and death job in conditions like that, weather conditions like that, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of, it weighs on you. That's taxing. Yeah. Because you're distracted by all these other things that really have nothing to do with the reason why you're there.
Right.
So it's just added, frustration and pressure and what have you. But you're doing it alongside so many other different types of people. People from all over the country. You're in somebody else's country.
Right.
And you're training them, so you're having to work together with them as well. How did that affect your ability going forward to be able to work together with different types of people? I mean, because you can only go one or two ways there. Either that just completely turns you off and you can't stand people.
Right.
Or you're somebody who can maintain a diverse circle of people to do business with, friends, etc., because it's just part of who you are at that point. What side do you land on?
Well, one thing that we were always trained was to adapt and overcome. I'm not sure about the other branches, but when it came to the Marines, we were always told, adapt to your surroundings, whatever it may be. So when it comes to working with different people and different personalities, I don't have an issue. I blend well with people. I understand that, everybody got something that they're dealing with in their personal lives. And, sometimes, especially when it comes to the military, there's times where, we didn't want to be there. Sometimes you had guys that were dealing with stuff that they didn't just want to leave the military and not want to be where they were currently in that situation, but a lot of them just didn't want to live anymore. And, it's that in itself is distracting because, we're here for a purpose. Now, obviously there's a lot of people around that don't agree with our purpose and our, mission or whatever the case may be, but that's the job. Everyone has a job that they don't like, but at the end of the day, it has to get done. So when dealing with different people, different personalities, different backgrounds, different cultural beliefs, political beliefs, I don't have, I'm able to separate the personal from the professional. If that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And you said something interesting there. Everybody is dealing with their own personal issues, and that's a very mature take that unfortunately is very difficult for most people to apply. Most people, no matter what happens, it's always something happening to them. It's being imposed on them.
Right.
And it's very easy to slip into that, it's on purpose. At work, somebody said something that I didn't like, or they're looking at me the wrong way on the train, or you know what I mean? It's about you.
Right.
It's this personal thing.
Right.
Not realizing that in most instances, not half the time, not some of the time, in most instances, people are going through life carrying their own baggage and issues and things that are going on in their world. And it ain't got nothing to do with you.
Right.
It's just, it is what it is. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to put up with everybody's crap. But when you're able to front of mind say to yourself, everyone's coming here with their own thing.
Exactly.
Suddenly, you avoid a lot of conflicts. It doesn't have to escalate to a point where next thing you know, you're beating the hell out of somebody, right?
Right. Right. And that's the thing, too, is that for those of us who have served, there is an understanding that on the civilian side of things, we are still looked at as a weapon. For example, Marines, right? One of the things that people know of is every Marine is a rifleman. So whether you are doing paperwork or you're a grunt out in the field, every Marine is a rifleman. Now, we're the only branch that has that, or at least that I can remember from when I first joined. We're the only branch that has every Marine earn that title through the combat training and everyone being proficient in firearms training. So when you come across, Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever, everyone has their own specific job. Like, I do infantry, I do mechanic work. But at the end of the day, and this is not to just be biased against Marines, but anyone who knows that every Marine is a rifleman. So don't think that the desk person doesn't know how to, get busy if they need to. You know what I mean? So it's like never doubt us, never count us out. We earned many titles, and one of those titles is Devil Dog. And we earned that back in World War I against the Germans. And it wasn't because of how, we were on fire and still moving. No, it was how we fought. It was the viciousness and style of fighting that earned us that moniker, And you have people that have said it, like a Tufahunden is the breed of dog that resonates with the term devil dog. So a Tufahunden is the bulldog in Germany, which is known to be more vicious than the American pit bull. So going to battle or being a part of a branch where they have that kind of legacy, whether people agree with it or not, people understand that, okay, he's a Marine. He's not like the others, That's why we hold ourselves to a higher standard. Now, we have times in our lives where we slack off on certain things, but when push comes to shove and we have no other choice but to turn that switch on, when that switch is on, I mean, it's going to be what it's going to be. And I try to keep that switch off because I know what I'm capable of. From and just a physical standpoint, mentally, I know what I'm capable of. If I turn that switch on, and I think I've told my family this many times, I don't want to get to a place in my life where I have to turn that switch on because, it could be a one-way trip. And we're trained to do what we got to do. Mission completion is number one. So that's why I try to stay to myself. I try not to engage with too many negative situations, because if I ever felt that I needed to go that route, I don't know if there's anyone around that can bring me back at that point.
Take me back. Way before military time, way before pro wrestling, way before who you are today. You experienced a pretty significant trauma as a young person. And there's no easy way to get into this. So I'm just going to just jump right in. What happened, Danny?
Oof. Well, I guess we'll start off with mom, because mom has to get her flowers because she survived a lot, even before having me. So our family, as as I say, warrior breed, like, we've been through some things. She was a young mom. She didn't finish school because she was helping her older sisters raise their kids while in the midst of taking care of her dying mother. And everybody was out having a good time, brothers, sisters, father, everyone pretty much did what they felt they wanted to do and kind of left her hanging. So she had to fend for herself. So she did what pretty much anybody would do at that point, and she chose the streets, whether it be doing drugs, selling drugs, gangs, whatever. That was just her upbringing. And, she had me 17 going on 18. And, I'm, fast forward a few years. She's not with my biological father. She's with my brother's father at the time. And I would witness her being abused, like to be 5, 6, 7 years old and watching it, not just them getting high or whatever, but watching him physically manhandle her. And I remember myself, I don't want to say laughing, because it wasn't funny. It was just, I don't know. It was like a weird, man, I don't know how to explain it. But you know how when because sometimes people cry when they get angry. And it's not because of it's just a weird emotion. Like some people joke about death or things like that. I don't know. It's just one of those weird emotions that I was having. And, just watching on a consistent basis. So you figure a 7-day week, I would say 2 or 3 times a week, I would see or hear. First, it would start off with me hearing the thumps from the other room. And then I'd run in to see what was going on. And I was small. My brothers and sisters, they were smaller than me. And there wasn't a chance to help her. And, I remember the kicks with Timberland boots to the face, to the head, to her ribs. And this guy was, 6'2", over 250, and mom was like 5'4", and she wouldn't back down, but she wouldn't defend herself either, because she was more worried about us, because she saw when we would run in and try to, whether it was yell, stop, or whether it was cry, anything that would get him to stop. She wouldn't defend herself. She would take the hits. Till this day, she lives with, she's riddled with a fractured skull, fractured ribs. Right now, she's battling MS. She's diabetic. Like, she's got all kinds of things going on with her. And there was a point in time, I would say about 8, 9. He was that same guy who molested me. And not just me, his own son. I would say, was it last year, maybe a couple of years ago, he finally passed. And I didn't tell my mother until we moved from the Bronx to Brooklyn. And this was around 99, around 2000. And she had such anger in her because of that. Like, she wanted him dead, And I think what hurt the most was that we had a lot of family members that were still friends with him. After knowing everything, they would still get drunk with him. They would still, like if they, saw him in the neighborhood or whatever, they would come up to him as if they don't know what happened. So here I am now. I'm like 10, 11 years old, 12 years old. And the cousins I grew up with, having a family around me, to then hearing about how they're still hanging out with the same guy who not only abused your aunt, but abused your cousins. And you guys were okay with that. So my take with family has always been, fuck the family. Because when push came to shove, you guys were more understanding of what actually happened to us. Because I'm 9 years old. I'm being exposed to something for the very first time in my life. I didn't grow up seeing that. I mean, I saw the drugs and stuff, but the sexual stuff, that was taught to me. That was shown to me. I was introduced in a way where you shouldn't be introduced, I didn't have conversations about the birds and the bees. No, the unfortunate truth was I was forced to experience it in a way where most guys today who have had a similar experience don't know how to express it. Like my brother, he's one of them. To this day, he has never opened up and spoken about it because, now when you think of the LGBTQ community, it may be seen as an acceptance of coming out, right? So back in the 90s, it was a fear of, oh man, people are going to think I'm gay because this happened to me. And it's like, at the end of the day, I don't give a shit. I know what I am. That didn't change me for nothing. And I'm an open book, and I've told my wife, I told my family all this. I've recorded music about it, and I've performed in front of churches talking about this because regardless of the setting, regardless of where I'm at, I always tell my story, right? So the purpose behind that, and even with wrestling, my character is me, my life. The only difference is, one, I'm in spandex versus when I'm out of spandex, I'm the same person. So the lockjaw character, when I say aggressive lifestyle, when I say warrior breed, it comes from a real place. These are not just two words I put together because they sounded cool or they look cool on paper. No, this is real. And, you figure 6-7 years later, I'm joining one of the most elite / aggressive branches in our country's military. So now they not only help enhance that level of aggression that was already built up inside of me, they showed me how to channel it. They showed me how to turn that switch on and off. And out of all jobs, the only job I qualified for was infantry. So it's like, damn, am I not smart enough to be a mechanic or a officer or whatever? They said, listen, your job is infantry. Great. So you're going to take this kid with a lot of pent up anger and you're going to put a gun in his hand. Great idea. Let's do that. But, and that, again, like I said, that's just the reality of things. And I say it so freely because, one, it's not uncommon. And two, I know there's a lot of people out there who find it very difficult to get past it. And that's usually because they don't want to be judged, right? So when people think they know me from what they see on Facebook or whatever, you're just getting a very small glimpse of whatever I'm dealing with that day. So if I'm in a goofy mood, you're going to get a goofy version of me. If I'm in a happy mood, you're going to get that. You're not, that's that's not even the main layer of who I actually am. You already know social media, people put on a front. However, me, I don't put on a front. I don't hide my face from nobody. When I speak on sensitive topics, I don't hide my face. I don't use the stories of others to try to get any kind of sympathy. This ain't a sympathy talk. When you go back, because I've been doing rap music since I was in the church. I would do gospel hip hop, and one of my very first songs was my testimony of my life. I actually recorded that over the Lose Yourself instrumental. So, and that was 2004. So you figure I've been writing my own music since 2004. I've been performing my own music since 2007. So I've been telling this same story for well over 15, 16 years already. So anyone who knows me outside of the ring and outside of the business part of wrestling, they'll tell you yeah, I have his first CD that he ever recorded. I was there when he recorded his first song, and this was the same story that he told. And again, my mother's still alive. My mother is old school. She's not one of those that are gonna say anything just for attention. No, mom don't need to do that. You know what I mean? Because I know you'll have some people say, "Oh, he's just using that to try to get sympathy." And nah, I'm the last one who does anything for sympathy. My wife will tell you that. My daughters will tell you that. I tell them all the time, listen, I'm raising you guys to be tough, independent women, because the truth of the matter is the world, life itself doesn't care what's between your legs. It's that's the one thing that will screw you over, whether you're a man, you're a woman, you're black, you're white, you're fat, you're skinny, you're young, you're old. It doesn't matter. Everyone gets the short end of the stick at some point in life, right? So I try to prepare them for the worst, so that should that worst actually come into reality, they know how to handle that. And like I said, that's just how I was raised, with the whole, what happens if me and your mother pass? How are you guys going to survive? That's how I was raised. So you figure, 11, 12 years old, I'm learning how to cook and do my own laundry and iron my own clothes and all these other things. And it's like, now I understood why these lessons were being taught. And, I try to make the best out of it and show those below me, my daughters and stuff, how to get through it.
Do you have any advice for people in the wrestling industry in particular? Because, everyone is coming to wrestling with their own challenges that they've dealt with in life. I mean, wrestling is notorious for being a place that technically, if you can withstand the training, if somebody can vouch that, okay, he's all right, she's all right, they can be part of the club, so to speak.
Right.
Outside of that, everybody's allowed in.
Exactly.
People from all walks of life. But that also means people who unfortunately have been through a lot of stuff too.
Right.
You're a person who I can tell is not taking things out on others. You're a person who openly is able to speak about their trauma, and you utilize it in various positive ways, including through your music.
Right.
What advice do you have for others on how they can cope with things in a similar manner and channel however they're feeling in a positive way, the way that you've been able to?
Well, it's kind of it's very similar to when you first begin therapy. You got to be able to first admit that there's an issue, right? So in this case, there needs to be an understanding that, okay, I've experienced these things in my life. You have to be willing and wanting to face it head on, right? A lot of people, they shut down. And I think that's the worst thing you can do, because when you shut down, you don't give anyone a chance to help you. You shut down, you become more guarded. And what happens is when you're in your own headspace, that's when all of the mental breakdowns start to happen. I don't want to live anymore. Why did this happen to me? Is it only me? You start second guessing yourself. Some people become not just suicidal, but antisocial. They don't, they grow up having trust issues and things of that nature. So I would just say, face it head on. That's one of the hardest things to do, is to face it head on, because if you're in a situation where that person is still around you, whether it be family, whether it be a trainer, a worker, a promoter, you have to now address the situation. My outlet, what I did it through a public outlet where I did music, and then I put the music out for people to hear it. And then I performed it in a church. So even though that person wasn't there to witness that, they ended up hearing it later on, or seeing it later on. So if they are in fear of that person being, within the same vicinity as them, it is tough, because, what tends to happen too is you get the outsiders, right? Those who are cool with these people. Like I said, with my story, how your own family was there and they knew of the situations that took place, and they weren't there to not only help defend me and my brother, but my mother. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, you guys are hanging out with a man who not only abused your little cousins, but your aunt, to the point where she nearly died multiple occasions. Like I said, she has a fractured skull on top of many different things that she suffered at his hands. So if you guys can hang out with this person and not be the help, then there's a problem. And I feel for a lot of the people who deal with this, because it could be family very similar to me who have done something to them, and the other family members don't believe them, or they don't want to hear it, or they're too buddy with that person. So that's where the whole antisocial, that's where the whole suicidal things tend to come into play, because it's like, damn, who do I go to help me through this situation, when the people that are supposed to love and care for me are part of the problem, right? So the way I would do it, I know it sucks, and I'm not trying to, be a tough guy or anything, but I would say, rip the Band-Aid off. The faster you are willing to say, you know what, I've been dealing with this 5 years, 10 years alone. I've been dealing with this in my head for so long alone. Not enough people are listening. Not enough people believe me. Let me just rip the Band-Aid off and face this person or this situation head on. And whatever happens, happens, because at the end of the day, you've already put yourself through the mental mind fuck, so to speak, where you've alienated yourself. And again, that also comes from what you've experienced. It's like, how to push forward. Well, I've dealt with this on my own. Now it's time to let it out. And however people take it, it's on them. But I need to tell my story, right? So we look at interviews, whether it be wrestlers, whether it be politicians, performers, entertainment figures. When you start to get to know them behind the scenes, and they start telling you their life story, and it's like, well, look at what they did to overcome their situations, and basically tell themselves that, look, we are more than a moment, right? So if you're dealing with something, you are not that moment forever. That's a moment in time. So what you need to do is get past it. And if you feel that no one's going to listen, trust me, there's always one. If life has taught me anything, there's always one that'll listen. And now with whether it be Me Too movement, whether it be Black Lives Matter, LGBT communities, there's always somebody who's going to be your cheerleader, be your support system. And I think that's one of the very few benefits that come with social media, because you could turn a once traumatic and private situation and you can make it viral. And when you make it viral, now it becomes something that needs to be talked about across the board on a more public level, right? So trauma is trauma, but it only gets fixed when it gets brought into the light, right? Because when you shine a light on something, people see it, people hear it. You can't see or hear anything if it's kept to yourself. You know, it's like how when we grow up, when they say closed mouths don't get fed. Well, the same thing goes for wanting to get past traumatic situations in life. When you are able to tell your story out loud, whether it's to one person, to two people, before you know it, you're able to say it more frequently. You're able to own it and say, you know what, I'm not 1999. I'm not, 2012. I'm not this. Those were moments. You are more than a moment.
Anyone listening, if they want to get in touch with you, Danny, and just feed off your energy, so to speak, whether it be pro wrestling, real life, the whole 9 yards, what's the best way people can keep up with you?
My Facebook, Danny Cruz on Facebook. As far as wrestling goes, I have my many pages. I have at Real Lockjaw, the number 7 on Facebook and Instagram. I have my tag team page, Real Art of War, the number 17. My company, Warrior Breed Wrestling, on Facebook and Instagram as well. And like I said, outside of the wrestling stuff, even though I mostly portray and put out and promote wrestling stuff, you can always reach out to me and say, hey, Danny, I want to talk to you about something not wrestling related. Even if it is on my fan page, I'll inbox you from the Lockjaw page talking about life, so don't think that because I'm giving you wrestling related pages that you can't talk about whatever you feel you want to talk about and trust me with, because that's the other thing. Like, I try to give people a sense of comfort knowing that, look, you're not the only one. I know a lot of people who have told me their own personal experiences and how similar their lives are to mine. So the last thing I want to do is not give them the freedom to speak however they feel they need to speak. My platform, I chose to vocalize it through music. And then I, try to apply it within my wrestling character, and like I said earlier, when I say aggressive lifestyle and I say warrior breed and people ask, why those words? And it's like, well, it stems from my life story. So when you're looking at Lockjaw, you're not just looking at a guy dressed as a pit bull. You're looking at Danny in spandex, because that's his actual life that he's put into this character. And that's pretty much one of the reasons why I wanted to get into wrestling. Other than, being rich and famous and being this big superstar, I wanted to be able to reach people, be able to tell my story to help people. Like you said, how do we help these people get past it? I think when enough people are willing to rip the Band-Aid off and tell their story, it helps others. It always starts with one. There always has to be that one who's willing to risk it all and then wait for the reactions and the feedback of others. And when others who have had similar upbringings to me see that, wow, he's gone through a lot, his family's gone through a lot, and he's still kicking. Let me try it now. Let me see how that works out for me. And then when they do it, they may be able to help somebody who's watching them. And before you know it, it's no longer something that should be held and kept to themselves.
Let's talk hydration. See, I carry something to drink with me every single place that I go because I am concerned about being dehydrated. It runs in the family. Everything from dry mouth, dizzy spells, fainting. It's pretty serious. And I've tried all the different types of waters and sports drinks. Let me tell you something right now. Liquid IV. That has been the most efficient at keeping me hydrated and doing so pretty quickly. Okay, Liquid IV has 5 essential vitamins and is 2 times faster at keeping you hydrated than water alone. And I'm serious, man. Everything from vitamin C to vitamins B3, B5, B6, B12. Liquid IV also is non-GMO, so it's free from gluten, dairy, soy. So for all you folks out there with food allergies, this may be right up your alley. And I know what you're thinking, but how does it taste, Duke? Well, it tastes pretty good. Okay, we're talking my favorite in pina colada. They also have tropical punch, strawberry, new flavors like sea berry and strawberry lemonade. You can enjoy this stuff, man. But don't take my word for it. I want you to stop what you're doing right now and head over to liquidiv.com. Use the promo code Duke Loves Rasslin so you get 20% off your entire order. I mean, anything that you order on liquidiv.com. So what are you waiting for? It's time for you to shop better hydration today. Use the promo code Duke Loves Rasslin over at liquidiv.com. Save yourself 20%. Stay hydrated. Most importantly, enjoy life. That's right. Now let's get on with the show.
It is La Princesa Tiffany Nieves. I am the OVW Women's Champion, the Mission Pro Women's Champion, and most likely your favorite promotional next future Women's Champion. And you're listening to Duke Loves Rasslin.
As always, folks, be kind to yourselves and be kind to others. Take it away, Tony Schiavone.
This is Tony Schiavone, and we're desperately out of time on Duke Loves Rasslin.